And we are live for episode 222 of Trek Live. How you doing this morning, Dan?
Doing great. Really excited to, obviously, ships are one of my favorite topics, so I'm really excited to get started, especially like a new era type of, or not new era, but like currently running Star Trek. It's going to be really fun to kind of talk about and dive into all different types of ships and stuff. I mean, with it being every 2 weeks, we've got a lot to talk about. There's a lot of news.
Yeah.
About Star Trek. There's been
yeah.
2 or 3 episodes since we've talked about Picard, so it's going to be a jam-packed morning for us. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to get into this too. We do have a lot to talk about. There's 2 episodes of Picard to really dive into with episodes 2 and 3. We have Picard. We have Discovery news that's huge and is something we have to touch on. And this guessing each other's favorite topic is a sort of continuation of a series that we did probably 2 years ago now. Some of our most watched videos are a guess each other's series about ships. We did hero ships. We did recurring non-hero ships. We did one-off ships, and we did Kelvin timeline movie ships. So now that we have 5 running shows and a lot to pull from, we thought it would be cool to come back to that and do try to guess each other's 5 favorite ships from these currently running new batch of shows. So we got a lot to talk about for sure. And I think we should, because it's been 2 weeks, like you said. I mean, there's been 2 new episodes of Picard since we've been last here. We've also both watched a lot of TNG since the last time.
Another season has gone by, it feels like, of TNG, so yeah. Yeah,
we're both through season 3. We're into season 4. So just your general, I think we have to do something soon to kind of touch on a bigger TNG kind of conversation with the rewatch recap. But what do you kind of broadly think about where you are now, a few episodes into season 4? What you think of season 3? General takeaways from the rewatch.
I feel like season 3 might be the best season of Star Trek The Next Generation. I think if there's definitely going to be some debate about best season of Star Trek ever, but
yeah,
no, it's really strong. Season 3 was really strong. I'm really glad that I am where I am in The Next Generation in my rewatch, because I know it would have been nice to have been done and right at the beginning of Picard, but that's a lot to ask, especially when you add in the movies and stuff. But yeah. I think when you're right in the middle of it too, there's been a few episodes that has changed its perspective because of what is on right now. So we'll talk about that another time maybe, because that's a bigger discussion for another day. But I think it's really perfect. I'm like really hitting the sweet spot of The Next Generation. And then I think week to week, I think Picard is getting better and better. So just really, really, really happy where I am with my rewatch.
Yeah, I don't want to get too into Picard, because we're going to talk about that at the end with where that show sits, but you can't separate them, I feel like now. Like, it's really striking how watching these like middle of the show TNG episodes are affected by knowing where these characters end up and what happens to some of them. Like, I just watched Future Imperfect, which you're not at yet, which is the Riker gets put into a situation where he's seeing like an alternate version of the future for himself, and he's got a son, and he's the captain of the Enterprise. Picard's off as an admiral, working with the Romulans, and like it's just so loaded with like it's not even real, like that future. That's an illusion created by, you'll see, but just seeing things like that really do. You can't help but watch it with that new context in mind, and that's really fun to be in the middle of it, like you said, while we're consuming the new Picard stuff. Even Remember Me, which I think you just watched, Dr. Crusher being so central in like a non-love story, which happens a lot with her in TNG when she's at the
Yeah.
central, of a story. It's often a romantic kind of a thing. You think of the host, you think of Sub Rosa,
Yeah.
uh, Transfigurations, but
But but even like just this throwaway line, like Beverly is asking Picard something, and Picard says, "Your word is always good enough for me." It's just already, it's just a loaded, which
yeah,
probably in 1990 or 1991, wherever we're at. It's just like that is such a throwaway line, maybe, but now it just
yeah,
changes.
for sure. Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting. There's a line in this episode of Picard that we'll talk about. The Crusher throws out there in their big discussion. Um, that kind of demands, I think, when you watch the Next Generation, to kind of be thinking about like how their relationship evolved over the course of the show, and when it might have been hot and when it might have been cold. And it's really interesting to be watching the Next Generation. And like you said, I think it's actually a happy accident that we didn't time it to where we were done the Next Generation and going into Picard. I think being in the middle of it and kind of bouncing from the Picard episodes back into like the right in the meat, right in the middle of the Next Generation, like the source material for what's powering Picard, is really kind of nice to just jump right back into the middle of it. Suddenly Human's another one. Watching Picard deal with that is like such a different animal now, and it informs so much of what's to come. So yeah, I think that's probably the best rewatch recap we can give right now. We're not going to get into rankings and
Yeah.
the numbers and where things sit quite yet. I'm very eager to see your season 3 rankings, but we'll have to do that at a later time, and maybe we don't have such a jam-packed episode here. Maybe we'll be able to pair up like we did last time. We did seasons 1 and 2 together. Maybe we'll do 3 and 4 together in a few weeks and take a look at both of those seasons next to each other, because they're both kind of often paired together too. It's sort of the beginning of the new era of Next Generation with all the new creative folks and new writing team. So yeah, so I think we should get into it. What we're going to do is, like we typically will in these topics, I'm going to transition to another screen on the visual side of this. You're going to see a sort of makeshift board where we'll put up our guesses for each other, and then we'll put up our actual top 5 lists once we've done our guesses. And we will get into everything that's on the board. We'll touch on everything that's there, even if they're not our own picks necessarily. If it's just on the guest board, we'll still touch on it and talk about why we thought they might be contenders. So this is really just that's a two-pronged thing. I think it's a fun exercise to see how well we know, how much we've kind of latched on to things we've said as we've gone through watching these new episodes as they aired, to see how honed our instincts about each other's tastes are. But it's also just it's an exercise to, just like every other ranking, to talk about the wide-ranging stuff out there, and to talk about multiples of things. And in this case, probably all 5 of the currently running shows will at least come up in one way or another, I would imagine. So we'll get into that now. We're going to be off screen for this, so you'll hear us but won't see us. Just the guesses will be up on the board, and the actuals. But bear with us as we get through these guesses. Dan, I'll ask you first to give me your guesses for me.
Okay.
And I'll put them up as you kind of roll through them, and we'll get going from there.
Okay, so my guess for you, though, number 5 is the Cerritos California class, whichever one you want to put.
Yep.
Okay. So my next guess, number 4, is the Protostar NX. I forget the class. Whichever.
Yeah. Might be just Protostar because it's a prototype, but
yeah, I wasn't sure and that's why I was confused, because I thought NX was the registry for
yeah, true.
Maybe that's later on, and whatever. Number 3, the Disco / Strange New Worlds Enterprise, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was first seen in Discovery.
True, it was. Yeah, and that's a whole thing. We're going to talk about that.
Which, again, there's other things that I'll mention, but I don't know if you could. Okay, the next one I'll use it as an example for my guess for Bill. is the Titan. So currently there's a Titan A, I believe, which is the one that's in Picard. But there's also the Titan that appears in the lower decks.
Correct. So which one?
I'm just gonna say Picard.
Titan A.
But then it gets a little funky again with my number one is Discovery.
Yeah.
Which is also now an A, right? 1031A, which is it hasn't been destroyed, but it's technically the refit. So, we can go back and forth on whatever that would be, but for that guess, I'm just giving Discovery.
Discovery generally, yeah.
And for me, this I tried to stick to, the main ship of the show, but there's also what goes into some of these picks, at least for me, and I'm sure for Bill as well, is it's not just the outside or the exterior. I think one of my favorite things about, the Enterprise in Strange New Worlds is some of the interior shots, or like Discovery's shuttle bay. It's so big, and that's technically an interior set and location. So I know we're going to focus a lot of attention on the exterior shots and definitely some money shots here in some of these ships. But I think I want to stress the importance of sometimes the stuff inside that makes maybe that's an analogy for life. And things.
Yeah.
But
hey.
no, there's some really great stuff on the inside of these ships as well.
Yeah. It's a really good point, and there's a lot of nuance that makes this, I think, create some uncertainty with doing this. The Discovery and the Discovery A, somebody could, if you wanted to, I guess, do the Discovery A, the sort of 31st century version, put that at number one, and put the first and second season original version at two. I did not either. You did it right for me. Just doing Discovery generally. I love both versions of the ship. And in a situation like this, I wouldn't want to have 2/5 of my list be the same ship. The Enterprise is another big one. It is new. I mean, it's a new version of it. It's a new vision of that same design, but it's not a new ship. So you could make a case that maybe it's eligible and you could certainly do it. No, not at all. Not at all. But I could see a scenario where maybe I have it on my list, but I toyed with maybe I won't even put it on there because it's kind of inherently, it's the Enterprise from TOS, and it's a different, interpretation of it, but it kind of goes without saying. But it is on my list. Spoiler alert. But I think there's some interesting things to talk about there as well. So I'll give you my guesses for you, and we'll kind of talk about them maybe first. Talk about our guesses and. Or no, I think we'll just go on to putting our lists up there so we can transition to just talking about everything that's there. I think that's probably the best way to do it. So I put a deep cut on here for your number 5, just because I wanted to stretch and see if maybe something a little deeper. It's not like a one-off kind of a thing. It's a recurring. But I'm going with Book's ship. I think it's called actually the Nautilus, but I'm not sure how to spell it. So I'm just going to put Book's ship. I didn't look it up before I went. Wow.
I tried to look. I couldn't. There was a few iterations of spelling. So I was like, I just put Book's ship, and that is correct, number 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am going to go with... I'm going to go with the Stargazer from Picard Season 2 at number 4. I'm sure we'll get into the Picard ships in more detail as we go. I know how you feel about, at least maybe at the beginning of the season, how you felt about one of them, and we'll get into all that. You're at number 3. I'm going with the Cerritos. I have that going fairly high on your list. And number 2, I went with the Discovery. And have that right there. And number 1, I'm going with the Enterprise from Strange New Worlds and Discovery. Not terribly confident in those top two and how they stack at all. I'm confident that they're on the list. I guess. I'm confident that they'll be somewhere on there. I'm assuming, but where they fit, I'm not as sure. So, how many did you get right? How many did I get right for you? And I'll tell you that
you got 4 right.
I got 4 right.
Yes.
You got 4 right for me too. So,
Okay.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
So, I feel like you have Stargazer on there. On your list.
I don't.
I don't have Stargazer on my list.
Oh,
either.
wow. Okay. All right. Okay.
That was probably 6 or 7. But yeah, so my actual I'll do the rundown here.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I guess I'll make it easier for Bill. It's the same as you have it, except swap out just Lower Decks Titan with Stargazer.
Wow. Okay. So even the ranking is correct.
Yeah, the ranking is correct.
Wow. Nice.
So you were on the money with that. Once you got like I thought I was gonna get you with the book ship at 5. It's like, oh man, maybe I could deep cut and maybe kind of, but no, you once you got that, I was like, oh, he's got this.
Nice. Very cool. I'm proud of myself. Book ship I felt pretty decent about. I mean, it felt like a deeper cut and like not an obvious, like it's not a hero ship kind of, but it's pretty heavily featured and it does some really cool stuff. And I'll let you talk about it since it's on your list.
And that's the thing. It's like I think it represents like a new era of like just it's incorporating this idea of this really big sci-fi concept of like programmable matter, which is like a new type of concept, which I think is so cool.
Yeah, agreed.
And I think it's kind of really easy to just like repackage some of these older ships and maybe change them a little bit, but no, like we get to this like this futuristic world where like this groundbreaking technology that's and it's just epitomized with his ship, and it's an odd shape as well, and I just think it looks really cool and interesting, and then obviously the programmable matter in it, and even the inside I think is really cool, with the consoles and how the matter looks, and so again, stuff on the inside is really cool. The Titan for me, this Titan A is definitely not my favorite, but I really do like the Lower Decks Titan. I think it really feels compact and I think in typical like warship design and really like command heavy starship design, you need like that compact, like the Defiant. It's really just a streamlined package. The Cerritos, I really do love the California class. I think it's like a really great take on like the Defiant, how it was kind of like the workhorse of that time and that era. I really like that they kind of similar type of design, but maybe changed a few things. But it really feels like a progression of like I forget the class of the Defiant, but Defiant. Discovery. Reliant, sorry.
No, Defiant. I think it's Defiant class. Oh, you mean the Reliant?
I'm saying like the Reliant.
The Miranda class?
The Miranda class. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Cool. Yeah. Great point.
But yeah, that's what I associate the Miranda class with hardworking. There's a lot of those out there in my mind. In my head canon. Discovery. It's one of those types of ships that really grows on me. Initially, when they posted that thing in 2017 or whatever it was, I was really nervous about it. But when the show aired, it was so cool. And then another thing, like the inside, like just like I mentioned the shuttle bay earlier, but like the engineering. Well, I guess it's not technically the main engineering, but like the engineering lab. There's all sorts of just really cool places that kind of change, like the ready room changes here and there. So I think there's a lot of cool stuff about Discovery that obviously changes and also cool is kind of stays the same. But also like just its whole thing about how it uses the mycelial network and how the saucer will rotate. That's just really cool, and how it goes to work is just so awesome.
Yeah.
And then obviously the Enterprise is my number one. Again, I think it does it pays homage to the old one. It looks futuristic. It looks mean and lean, and also the inside stuff. The bridge is fantastic. Everything. Captain's quarters is really cool. The bar, I really love it.
Yeah. No, I echo everything you said, and quite a few of there's a good number, a sizable overlap with my list. Some differences, but the ones that aren't, like Bookship, Titan from Lower Decks, they're on the long list and would be in that like 6 to 10 range for sure. I'll definitely talk in a second about the Cerritos, the Discovery, and the Enterprise. They're on my list. So you got. You got 4 from my list with a 5th missing. So we're the same. Your order is correct. With the so my number 5 is the Cerritos. Put that up on the screen. And my thing with the Cerritos is, I think it's new, it's exciting, it's a workhorse like you were saying, but I also love the way that it captures the comfortable kind of luxury liner feel from the Next Generation in that era. Yeah, like it's that show is such a love letter to the Next Generation specifically, and the design of the Cerritos interiorly especially, like you were saying, is so important with this. It's so beyond just like what's the ship look like on the ship shot. It's what does it feel like when you're in there, and what kind of vibe does it give that's unique to it, with the sets and the design of the setting of the ship. And the Cerritos just echoes so much of that next gen vibe, and that's such an integral part of that show. So I had to get that on there. My number 4 is the one that isn't on this list, and it goes all the way back to the very, very beginning. Jeff actually mentioned it in the chat. It is the Shenzhou from the Vulcan Hello and Battle of the Binary Stars. It's the first ship we see in Discovery. It's Captain Philippa Georgiou's ship, where the Klingon War is sort of kicked off from. I love
the deck layout is really interesting. Having the bridge at the bottom.
Correct.
Which I feel like makes more sense because I feel like it's more protected. But
yeah,
that's okay.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I agree. And that's kind of what stands out to me: the unique layout of the ship with the bridge on the bottom. That opening shot after the main credit sequence, pulling up toward the ship, and from the bottom of the saucer sensor pulling into the bridge through the view screen, and seeing Michael Burnham standing there. That's a really big Star Trek moment for me, with it kind of arriving back to TV and being new and exciting again. I love the Shenzhou. It takes a beating in those first 2 episodes, but I also love that we jump into it like at the end of its journey. Like, this is a ship that's been out there. It's a crew that's been out there. There could be a 7-season show that ended with that just as easily, and like you can just feel it like in the bulkheads of the ship. It's like a little beat up. It's not like shiny and new anymore the way the Discovery is when we get there. It's kind of, you can almost see some like rust on some of the consoles, and like it's got that sheen. It's a starship in Starfleet. It's certainly beyond anything we have in the 21st century by a long shot. But it has a more kind of rustic, worn, lived-in feel. So I'm a really big fan of that. And then my 3-2-1 is exactly what you guessed. I have the Enterprise from Discovery, Strange New Worlds, the Titan A from this season of Picard, and Discovery. The Enterprise is everything we've already kind of said. It's kind of the perfect update and reimagining of the classic original design. I think it pays homage in all the right ways, but expands out and takes advantage of modern production capabilities. It's a new interpretation. It's not a reimagining. It's not a redo of that design. It's just a sort of fleshing out and taking advantage of what's capable of being done today. opportunity, and I just love it. The new sets, the old sets, all of it kind of works. I fell in love with it the first time we saw it in Discovery, and seeing it fleshed out even further in Strange New Worlds has been kind of a dream come true to see that ship kind of translated with all the new capabilities and done with so much love for the original. The Titan A, I know we have a disagreement here for sure. I think I'm really curious to hear, like, is it growing on you? Is your opinion of it changing in any way? The more you see it, the more we're on it. I I like the, it's unconventional, and it's a little boxier, a little bulkier than like my vision of a ship would be in the 25th century. But I love the outline of it. I just love seeing like those angles that are like reminiscent of the Constitution class. There's a hero ship kind of undeniable quality to it. There's a shot in this most recent episode with it kind of like repositioning itself and changing course within the nebula, and it kind of bends around and goes by, and there's like just a real like throwback to the Enterprise E and the Constitution class ship from the movies, especially, that just gives me good feelings. I really like it. It's also really aided by it's essentially the same set design as the Stargazer in season 2. I mean, they clearly built that set, and that's what they were going to use for seasons 2 and 3 with them shooting it together. That bridge is the same bridge with maybe some minor modifications, but it's just like the bringing the Akutas back, and Doug Drexler and John Eves and all the people who like worked on the art department side of things in Picard season 3 and season 2. It's just, there's an undeniable quality brought back to the lived-in design of that ship, from the internal side of it especially. I think the Elcars are just amazingly gorgeous on the bridge, the big panels, and the natural update that I think feels right for the way the layout of the bridge feels and is functional. So I'm a big fan of the Titan A, and Discovery is my clear-cut number one. That's my home. Like, that feels like the home ship to me, which it didn't early on. I always talk about this, early in season 1 when Burnham shows up, it doesn't feel welcoming. It's kind of cold and gray and dark blues, and it's mysterious and it's shadowy, and you don't know what's around the corner, and it's kind of scary. But, through watching her grow on the ship and get more comfortable, so do we. And I feel like over the course of the seasons and seeing it change and grow through the refit of the Titan A and into the future with new sets like the lounge and stuff we got in season 4, I love that ship. That's the ship that I would want to walk around, I think, of this new. I mean, the Enterprise from Discovery and Stranger Worlds is obviously a big contender as well. But I'm a big fan of Discovery. I'm feeling nostalgic for Discovery this week for all the obvious reasons as well. So there was pretty much no shot that wasn't going to be my number one. So we did pretty good. I think both of us got our top threes correct, which is big. And we had a little difference in the bottom with number 4 as our only kind of miss in our guesses to our actuals. So I guess that means we listen to each other when we talk about New Trek. We have a pretty decent gauge of what makes us tick in terms of ship designs, at least. The Titan A, just real quick. I know we got to talk about it. Like, is it what I said? Is it like the kind of boxy? Like, what is it that kind of rubs you the wrong way?
I think it is primarily the secondary hull. Like, I feel like it looks kind of like the Vengeance a little bit, where it's in the way it's like its proportions, I guess. And I think I do appreciate the boxy designs of the the saucer section, because that's like a classic Trek type of style in ship design. I think that completely makes sense here. But I don't know. I think that I don't know. It's hard because it feels like we're going backwards a little bit. Where it's like, okay, with the Enterprise D, we really get these really kind of sleek, and maybe back in the day people said that was too boxy too.
They
but,
did. Mm-hmm. Some people still
you,
do.
You get these kind of sleek designs, but then you go to the Sovereign class, which is more sleek and yeah, I don't know. It's just hard because it feels like we're going a little bit backwards.
Yeah.
And I think my only problem with it is kind of looking at it right now is the from the front it feels just so
disproportionate,
boxy, and not and maybe that's just because I'm used to having a more a really sleek design. But I don't know. It's hard because I like the neck. if I like that style.
Yeah.
I really think I'm looking at for multiple views here, and I think it's just really that secondary hull for sure. At least for me, because everything and again I like the flipped nacelles, the like Titan and Lower Decks. I like that. It does. I mean, I guess you could make a case that the lower secondary hull is boxy there too, but it is flipped. I don't know. The proportions feel a little bit better in that sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the greatest thing about Star Trek is that we can disagree and that be completely okay. I respect people's opinions and yours, Bill, about the Titan A.
I had mixed emotions about it when I first saw it in that first teaser that dropped probably about 10 months ago now. I was mixed, but it's grown on me. I feel like seeing it in action has changed my opinion, which has happened a lot, honestly. It happened in the Discovery. When I first saw the Discovery, I was like, really? I'm not sure. That feels a little overly retro to me and a little unconventional. But it feels completely at home now, and I couldn't love it more. So that's like a typical journey for me with particularly ship designs. Jeff is saying for him the Titan A just seems a bit out of its time, but he's fine with it, just not his favorite. He has a top 5 that I'm going to mention here in a second. I want to make sure we touch on his, but to be honest, like it is out of time. If you know anything about the production of season 3, Terry Matalas wanted to harken back to the Constitution class in the original series movies. Like he that was a directive from the showrunner to like do something that felt like 23rd century kind of throwback, kind of frigate like ship, and that's a design choice coming down from the top that I think people of good conscience can agree or disagree with for sure, and that's what they executed, and it works on me because I love those angles that you can catch on that Constitution class outline of a ship, and I appreciate seeing them here again. I think the Sovereign also could do that. There were angles of the Enterprise E that gave those same like majestic kind of qualities that the refit Enterprise did in the motion picture and the Wrath of Khan, especially. So I welcome those things back, but I agree with you guys. I get it. That it's certainly been controversial to this point, I think, with some folks not being in love with that design. I do think honorable mentions, anything that just missed your list that
the
would have been...
Stargazer was probably up there. I always was a fan of like interesting nacelle choices, and so that's why I really do like the original Stargazer, which it does have the similar Titan-esque feel with the saucer section. So that kind of boxier is like a staple of Starfleet, even in all the ship designs. But the Stargazer was definitely really tough to leave off my list. It's got a great bridge as well. Like it does look really cool and really futuristic on the outside, but it's got a great bridge as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the Stargazer was in my like 6 through 10. My hardest cut was a Prodigy ship, and it wasn't the Protostar. It was the Dauntless, the Admiral Janeway's ship. I thought that was a really cool kind of throwback, bringing that design. There's a really cool Instagram account from Paramount, CBS run. They do like, have you seen it? The logs they drop like through Prodigy and I think through Lower Decks and even Discovery last year. They would drop like short narrations that were like kind of sometimes fairly insignificant but interesting, like pieces of backstory narrated by the actor. Like it's a log entry from that character. And through Prodigy, they talked about the Dauntless being designed by B'Elanna Torres. She was on like the engineering team that built that ship, and they were trying to, use the concepts of the Artemis Dauntless ship from Hope and Fear from Voyager to see if it could actually work. So it's like a prototype pulled from that episode of Voyager. There's some cool backstory to it that I really like, and I always loved that design, and I thought it was cool that they brought that back and put Janeway on it. So, yeah.
Anytime there's movement, I think it's really cool. Like the Protostar obviously has.
Oh, yeah, the Protostar has that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Protostar was another tough cut, and a ship that's on Jeff's as well. So I'll just name. He has the La Serena from Picard, seasons 1, 2, and 3. That design's been pretty steadfast through the show. The Shenzhou, which is on my list. The Stargazer, which is an honorable mention for both of us. The Klingon Ship of the Dead is another one from those early Discovery days.
Yeah.
It was one that I gave a lot of thought to, just because it's so iconic at this point, I think, for like those early days of Discovery and establishing that show. That's a big deal, that ship. And he has the Protostar as well.
I think it'd be cool to do like a non-Federation type of just follow up to this. Maybe just talk about it, because I think there is some really cool like good guy Federations stuff shit. Because the Ship of the Dead was really cool, really menacing, and it really fits where the Klingon is. The Klingons are at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big concept. I feel like that's such a cool. I remember again, really feeling nostalgic for Discovery at this point, obviously. So thinking about those early days, like in the lead up to the premiere, and like wondering about like what's going on with the Klingons and what's powering this story, and not knowing until you got to see the show, and hearing some tea leaves about this, ancient ship that's been like handed down through generations and has coffins on it and all this stuff. It's like there's a lot of cool stuff with the development of that ship and how it factors so heavily into those first handful of episodes. I think any other thoughts, any other ships? I think I agree with you that it maybe touching on some of the non-Federation, non-hero shippy kind of designs would be, because obviously when we do something like this, kind of know that those hero ships are going to factor so heavily, because how can they not? I mean, they're the identity of those shows, and they would be. I think it would be dishonest. You have to like consciously try to kick some of those off. I think so. They factored heavily here, but there's a lot of others to talk about too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just Lower Decks is so easy. Like the space station that they have in there is
it's so cool.
Just so cool. Which I wasn't sure if that was a ship or a space station. But technically, the Delta Flyer is in Lower Decks.
Yeah,
it's just. I think it's cool because, obviously, with Lower Decks, there's the production is a little bit easier to kind of just work up some of these ships as far as like animation goes, because it's harder to build sets and build 3D models and stuff. So
Lower Decks has done a lot. There are a lot of cool ship designs throughout that show,
and we get the California classes, but it has like the outside of the hull is kind of taken off of it, so it's kind of like a copper looking one, which I was like, oh, that's really cool, and all like the bulkheads and all the conduits are exposed, and I think that's really cool too.
Yeah, the other thing we didn't touch on that the Cerritos has done for Star Trek, because of all the things you just mentioned with like the the kind of open. The world is their oyster for the production side of things. We got to see the I'm having a brain freeze. The thing that
Deep Space Nine.
well, of course, yeah, we went back to Deep Space Nine, which is awesome,
Yeah.
and is a huge ask of like a live action show to be able to do that at this point.
Yeah.
That would be an extremely expensive venture. Cetacean Ops, like getting to do that. Like,
Oh,
there are elements
Yeah.
of like Federation ships that are obviously like really not achievable in live action without tremendous resources being spent. But Lower Decks is able to do those things, and so getting to and even the lower decks of the ship, like seeing how the crewmen live, like at the very bottom of the ship in a more like dormitory kind of environment, in like a shared living space where crewmen are kind of sharing space on different shifts and things like that. Like that's cool. Like it's different, and it's not something that I ever like envisioned as like happening on the Enterprise D necessarily or on Voyager. But why not? And it's a cool new idea, and Star Trek's 57 years old, so anytime they can like make something feel cool and new again and unexpected, that's a big deal, and I think Lower Decks has done that a lot. So yeah, the Cerritos is a great ship, and I think I'm glad that it was on both of our lists. Any other ship kinds of things we should touch on before we transition over to Picard?
I don't think so. I think I don't know. I think this new current running production team really has their like hands on the pulse of what was in the past, but also to bring like really new ideas and really shake up the ship design of that era, especially with that's a big ask going to so far into the future with Discovery. I think that they had to do something that was like, man, this is like groundbreaking stuff. So I just really appreciate that they really do have really can capture and not make it feel so alien, because it is a 57-year-old show or whatever. So to make it feel so cohesive, I think they've done a great job.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. All right, let's talk about Picard. We talked about episode 1 a few weeks ago. We did a whole episode talking about the launch of the season and kind of what we felt with one episode down. So since we've talked last here on Trek Live, there's been 2 and 3. We've seen 2 more episodes, and a lot's happened. We're not doing a full-fledged thing. We're not going to dive into every single plot thread. There's lots of places you can go to get all that stuff, and it's been done by the time we're just sitting here talking now. But just kind of overall, like what are the biggest things you're taking away from the season
early on, like maybe the first episode to maybe the second episode, when it was revealed that it was officially like it's Picard's son, did not care. Like I was just like going down this road again, like we've done it in Trek.
Yeah,
I was more interested in the Ralphie stuff with
Worf.
With Worf, obviously, which is now revealed. Spoiler alert. So I think for me, that plot was more interesting than this so-called A plot with Picard searching for Crusher. I think they've done just a really great job of making it feel mysterious and very interesting and trying to track down. And then obviously these two connections are going to connect at some point in the season. But yeah, I think 3 kind of changed my perspective on the Picard's son. And at least to this point, I think they really handled it perfectly, because for me, like in episode 3, they gave more of the time to Picard and Crusher, and I think that's what at least for me, that's what I cared about kind of more, is the having their time to kind of hash it out like they did in uh, sick bay. So yeah, I like that they gave more time to just them and not like having Picard, and which they still could do. They still could have a Picard and his son now go at it. But I'm growing. I'm warming up to it as I'll kind of wrap it up. It feels a little long winded. So yeah, but really loving the Ralphie and Worf stuff. That is so good, and really loving Worf specifically. Michael Dorn is the man, and I think it feels right at home. So
yeah, I would echo a lot of that. I think we talked offline actually about it, kind of sensing this Picard storyline coming and being like, I hope they don't fly too close to the sun with Wrath of Khan, and being a little hesitant about it, and hoping that they found a way to do it that I would fall into. And honestly, one of the things that's helped me do it is watching TNG. I think seeing things in episodes like Allegiance, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, watching even Remember Me, like you just mentioned, like I kind of put myself back. I remember in the lead up to Insurrection, I was really young, and there were a lot of like rumors flying online about what that movie was going to be before we knew what it was. And one of the things that everybody kind of wanted and we're talking about is, Picard Crusher, like do something there. And so like that's been in the DNA of like what people have kind of felt that show was kind of building towards since Encounter at Farpoint. And it's unconventional to have characters that are, that far along in life and that, at that age, have that kind of big thing happen.
It's the future.
It's the future. It's 21st century. It happens later. Lifespans are longer. Everything gets pushed back. Medicine is obviously far advanced. So, I don't have a problem with that myself. But, I'll be honest. Right now, if pressed, my favorite thing about this season is Picard and Crusher. Like, to me, that is the thing that is like. That's what I've wanted the Next Generation to be able to like do through that they were never able to do with the movies. Like do something big, like push the characters, do something dramatic and huge and ambitious. Like move the characters forward, and the separation and the time away and the mystery that is inherently there from not seeing them for 25 years, 20 years, whatever it's been, allows that to happen. And I'm just glad that that's what they're doing. And like to me, that feels like an answer to a question that's been out there for so long. And I'm glad they're going big with it, and they're you can't say anymore that like the Picard Crusher thing is this giant non-entity thing that was always hinted at, but they never even like every time they even slow walked up to it, they pulled back and nothing ever came of it. It's not the blue you know what thing. Like it's not that. There's an actual follow up to that.
But it is though. It's will they won't they still, because
it's still true.
They even said that they tried like 5 times.
Right. Exactly.
But they aren't together.
No, they're not. And I'm fine with that. I feel like, well, first of all, the 5 times was that's the line that I'm like, wow, when you watch Next Generation and you almost have to like. There are different points along that way where they tried, like they kind of, and there are times where like you think back and you watch it. How many times over the course of the show, we haven't gotten there yet, but there are episodes that begin with like Picard and Crusher eating breakfast in Picard's quarters in like super casual, like breakfast attire. It's just them. It's like candlelit table. It's super intimate. And I think people have always kind of had questions like, what are they doing? Like, are they or aren't they? And it's always been kind of a mystery that I think everybody has kind of erred on the side of, no, it's the future and it's loosey-goosey and it's super casual and super chill, but it's not anything serious. But I think knowing where it goes and hearing a line like that, it kind of makes you wonder, like, were they kind of quietly trying to make it work? And for all the reasons that are obvious, it couldn't. Like, I buy that. I just believe what you saw on screen, I think, backs that up. And it's not like a pulling the rug out from under them retcon kind of a thing to throw out there. And I'm feeling that more because I'm watching the show and I'm seeing little hints of it even now
Like
in the fourth
Allegiance.
season. Yeah, that like that duplicate, it has Picard's head in him. Like that duplicate's acting on Picard's instincts and his.
Was that them just trying to float like the idea of like, what would this look like?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that's what Picard wanted. Like if Picard could like be super loose and not be the captain and not have his own like expectations of what he had to do as a captain, you know, compelling him not to. I think that's what he would want to do, and yeah, I just buy it, and I'm glad that they went there. I'm on board for it so far. I think I had hesitations about it. I was intrigued by it, and I'm mostly sold with the execution of it. I think the actor playing Jack Crusher's great. I think he's way better than David Marcus was in Star Trek 2 and 3. He's a better character. He's more interesting. He's not a kind of a whiny pushover kind of guy. Like I believe that this is a guy that is interesting and has Jean-Luc Picard and Beverly Crusher's DNA in him. Like I'm pretty on board with him as a character and as an actor so far. But there's a lot to come, and we're early on in this thing, and
he feels like a Harry Mudd character to me. Like
Harry Mudd,
yeah. Just because maybe it's just the multiple identities and
yeah. Well, that's a big question. We don't know what that's all about yet, and I'm really curious. Is that, I mean, there's obviously a big thing going on with conspiracies within Starfleet because of the other big reveal, the changelings are around. Like, is that even real? Like, is that really true? Or is that a con to get him, you know, to tell Starfleet that he's this wanted guy? We don't know. Like, there's a lot we don't understand. There's obviously people within Starfleet that are up to no good. I feel like there's Vadic knows a lot. I mean, Vadic has that line last week about Captain Shaw. Like, she knows about his psychological profile and that he's still okay. Like, that's like, how does she know that? Obviously, there's changelings in Starfleet that are fueling information out to these different parties that are conspiring to do whatever they're trying to do. And I'm sure we're going to discover that as the season plays out.
But isn't that like centered around Crusher too? Because she's like, don't trust anybody.
Yeah, I mean, she says this week, like, you can't trust anybody because every time we get stopped and they're trying to take him, it's about it's somebody else. It's Klingons, it's Friend Rangers, it's Starfleet.
Yeah, the Rangers. Yeah.
Yeah. Every time we find somebody, they seem to want him, and you know why that is. Who knows? Is it about? And like she says, is it about him or is it about you? Like, is it a Picard thing or is it a him thing? We don't really know. I think there are a lot of things yet untold that we just don't know yet. It's a mystery, and it's still an unfolding story.
Do people know that he's their son? Like, how?
Somebody does, I think. It's like I feel like
it's weird.
Yeah, we don't totally know yet. I mean, there's a lot unknown. We're 3 chapters in out of 10, and I think we're gonna get more and more answers for all these things. We're kind of reviewing an unfinished product, even more so than some of the other. This feels more serialized than Discovery does. Like, to me, like it's more like it's increasingly difficult for me to like review these episodes individually. Like I said on Twitter, like this is going to be the highest rated season ever for me because I don't see any of these episodes. I'm not going to be giving these episodes like a C- or a C. Like, if by the grade point average thing, it's like I don't know how, unless this totally falls on its face. I don't know how it wouldn't be, which is weird. I don't know. It's going to make me like reevaluate how I do it, everything. So I don't know if it'll be my favorite season of Star Trek ever. I don't know if that's fair to say. Yeah. But by the numbers, because of the way the story is being told and how serialized it is, and yeah, it's interesting. But you kind of, I didn't mention the Worf Rafi stuff is phenomenal. I think Michelle Hurd's great. I think they're a perfect pair. Michael Dorn, you said it in a text. He has not lost his fastball. He is Worf, son of Moog, all the way. Somebody tweeted, I sent it to you, and said that like post Jadzia Worf knows he's funny, and I totally agree with that. Like I feel like the way his humor comes out, he's a little more self-conscious about like what he says makes people laugh, and when he says things like beheadings are on Wednesdays, and like it's really funny. Yeah, it's like I believe that he kind of through his experience with Dax and being called on his BS, like he's a little more self-aware of his humor and kind of leans into it a little more than he did back in the day. And he's great. I think Michael Dorn's phenomenal. My whole thing is this. It's not just Michael Dorn, the whole cast. I think that scene between Picard and Crusher in sickbay in episode 3, Patrick Stewart and Gates McFadden have never been better. I think both of them are just unbelievably great in that scene. With a really tall order, like they have to do a lot there. They have to sell you, and maybe they do, maybe they don't, depending on who you are. Maybe it's a mixed result in terms of like who's watching it. Are there people who watch it and go, Beverly's 100% wrong and can't get over that? Or are there people who think I see both sides? But they just have to fill a lot of history in that scene, and I just think the actors are phenomenal in doing that. I think Jonathan Frakes is amazing as Riker for a guy who does not act much these days. Is pretty much a behind the camera guy for the last 20 years or so. Is unbelievably comfortable and confident as Riker. You know, when he gets handed the keys to the car on the Titan, it's
so good.
It's so good.
So
it's like
good.
all of a sudden you're sitting there watching it, and like when you think about what are the best Riker episodes, all of a sudden you got like another episode to think about. Like it's 17 seconds, like an all timer kind of like one of the better Riker episodes, because you get to see him, you know, no doubt about it, in command of a ship in like a real crisis. And have mixed results and like mixed feeling. Like that's the other thing. There's no easy answers. Everything in this season so far, I feel like the dilemma. It's good drama. Like the dilemmas on all sides are valid. Like I think Crusher's wrong. I think she made some effed up decisions, but I get it. Like I see where she's coming from. I think her most key line in that argument is, I lost both my parents to space. I lost my son Wesley to space. I lost my husband to space. Like, yeah, she has this other kid on the way. She's like constrained and wants to not let other things in, especially when that other thing is Jean-Luc Picard, who's out getting kidnapped and held for ransom and dealing with Romulans and has assassination attempts and can't say no to getting involved in everything, as shown this season. Like every season of Picard, he's getting pulled back into some crisis when he's an 80-year-old, 90-year-old retired admiral. You know, like he can't say no. He's always out there. So Crusher's right about that. I think Shaw's right. Riker's right. Picard's right on the bridge when they're in these different situations. Like it's not a clear cut, somebody's right, somebody's wrong. They all have good instincts. They're all coming from different perspectives. They see different sides of the same coin and have different instincts on how to deal with the issues. I think Rafi and Worf are both right when they're arguing through the chat about what to do and how to pursue this mystery. Like, do you pull back? Do you keep going? Is she suited for it? Is she not? Like, you buy both sides of all these arguments, and to me, that's good drama. And seeing it powered by largely these old TNG characters getting like real dramatic, meaty things to do is fantastic.
Yeah, all great aspects. Beautifully written so far, at least. I guess, you know, maybe your mileage may vary on some of like the sun stuff. But,
yeah.
No, I mean, just even like the smallest details, like Ralphie and Worf playing good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
To this changeling operative, and it's like your preconceived notions, like they're flipped because like Ralphie is the bad cop who's like this really, you know, on edge, trying to find answers, and then Worf is just this really calm.
Yeah, he's like, we get it. You're not totally responsible. Just tell us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good, and they've really done a nice job flipping Worf on his head a little bit and moving him forward in ways that feel right and credible. Yeah, really, really good stuff. That Worf stepping forward and saying how long you've been away from the Great Link is a big, like a big moment. You know, I think people are kind of clocking maybe changelings because of they have a different face every time, kind of a thing. Like they've dropped some lines that we've talked about that, you know, it could be it could be that. And Terry Matalas has made no bones about like there are Deep Space Nine elements present in this season. He's been saying that for well over a year now. So people have been waiting for like, well, what is that? So it's not like it's the nature of the business with this. Like if you don't completely go cold turkey and not read anything, you can't help but have some ideas in your head floating around leading up to it. So complete out of left field surprises might not happen, but it was pretty shocking to hear, that they're changelings that broke away post Dominion War and have been up to no good. And Worf knew something was up because a man of honor from the Link reached out, a good friend, an old friend, like so good, so good, yeah, so good. Yeah, I think, and if what he has said about there may be actors or characters from Deep Space Nine that may appear at some point along the way, that with that kind of factor, the changelings being involved in the story, I feel like that ups the ante for like those Deep Space Nine characters feel needed, whoever they are and whatever capacity they might appear. That feels even more natural now that they may need to come across somebody from Deep Space Nine naturally within the story.
Yeah, and it finally is like making. I don't know. It just felt weird that like the Enterprise wasn't, like at
the forefront of that.
The forefront of this major war. Kind of consumed the Federation. And yet again, there was questions of like, okay, is this Federation going to come out of this? Yeah. But I'm excited for more episodes. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
And I'm jealous that some of these, press folks have watched 6 episodes. That is, man, I can only imagine.
Although, like those people are on like a 7-week dry spell waiting for episode 7, so or however long it's going to take for them to get more screeners. I guess I almost would rather. I'm jealous too. Trust me that they know what's coming and that they got to binge 6 episodes, a couple weeks ago now. But I might prefer like one a week and not having that long break right in the middle of the season. So it's all got its ups and downs. Yeah, I think Discovery, real quick, just a couple minutes before we wrap up here. Obviously, the news is that the 5th season will be its last. That is disappointing to me. I would have loved for it to get a couple more, get to that magic number 7, that the old era of TV kind of made comfortable for those legacy Star Trek shows, Deep Space Nine, TNG, Voyager, but I posted something on Twitter, in this day and age, 5 seasons feels like a lot. Stranger Things is like the biggest thing out there. That's wrapping up with its 5th season this year, I think. Succession is a huge show on HBO that people love and wins Emmys all the time. That's wrapping up with its 4th season this year. This is not the day and age of the network TV drama that goes for 7 years and needs syndication numbers to be hit to qualify for syndication. Like Paramount Plus isn't going to be farming Star Trek Discovery out to be shown on BBC America, so they don't really care about hitting an episode number. It's a different equation that I think defines like what the length of a successful show and what the numbers are. To me, I'm disappointed that it's ending and that, it doesn't sound like they wrote season 5 with the idea that was going to be it. And that's disappointing.
If it was, I feel like we would get. That's the true. When they said 2024, I'm like, okay, they got to rewrite. They're
doing some stuff. Yeah. And that's apparently happening.
I feel like we would have seen it maybe like in the fall if it wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, there was buzz about. Just a couple of weeks ago, Wilson Cruz was on a podcast saying this spring, so that season 5 was going to come. So all the talk out there, from folks who are better plugged in than we are, is that there are going to be callbacks. They're going to adjust some things, I guess, with the wrap up. A lot of people I remember saying, season 4 ended and people thought, man, that felt like a series finale. Like the way that it ended felt kind of final. That if it never came back, it would feel like that was an end of a story. And because of the way that show operates with kind of a season being a big story, sometimes those seasons end like that. I mean,
Always feel like that.
Yeah, it always kind of feels with some finality at the end of a season. Season 3, I remember people feeling the same way. So I don't know that they have to. Who knows? We don't know anything about season 5 and how it ends, but who knows what the extent of the changes that they're going to be making are. Are they structurally changing it? Are they shooting in additional episodes? Is it going to be 12 instead of 10? Is it going to still be 10 with just some reshoots? Who knows? That's disappointing that they have to go to that extent and do that. That they couldn't write the season as the final season. But
are we not going to get our dang Calypso payoff?
That's a good question.
Oh my goodness.
We might not. Maybe not.
Dang it.
Yeah, that may end up being like an age-old mystery. Yeah, who knows? But my big takeaway is all these shows end. Discovery is just going to join. Well, Picard too. It's going to be right in the same lineup as Next Generation and Voyager and Enterprise and Deep Space Nine. It's going to be a completed product. I actually think, I'm hoping, something I would like to see happen is that if there's only 65 episodes of Discovery, even though they're serialized, like it's, that's 65 like individual episodes. That it's not 178 of them. And when people go back and they rewatch it, I think the episodes will be easier to kind of think of as independent things, especially through when you go back and you look at it and you see how sort of episodic it is within the constraints of a serialized overhang. I think it's going to be fun to reevaluate it and go back and see it as a completed product and look at it as just another one of those legacy shows. It's going to be a legacy show just the way that those other ones are. And I'm looking forward to seeing how, like the others have done. Time is usually kind to these shows when they go away. And I'm curious to see how the finality and being out of the limelight in that way will help Discovery, I think, with a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm just going to miss it because it's like this whole, the second coming of Star Trek is kicked off with this show, and it's going to be tough to see it go.
For sure.
But I get it. I guess it's as tough as a pill to swallow. I get it because the state of really these streaming services, they're cutting back, and I wish that I could tell everybody that I knew that there's going to be 2 replacements here. I don't know if that will be the case. Yeah. Being that Picard obviously is
wrapping too.
Is wrapping as well. So I hope for another show, but who knows?
Who knows?
Just be thankful that it happened, I guess. There's been a lot of divisiveness on the ending of the show and just Discovery in general. I'm just like, I tend to try to just be thankful for that we even got 5 seasons and just be appreciative that this show is like really special, and the fact that it really kicked off everything. People, I see outpouring of Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds and then some Prodigy as well, but it's just without Discovery we wouldn't have any of these shows. So.
That's indisputable. Yeah, I think that'll do it. I think we covered a lot today. We talked about TNG, we talked about Picard, we talked about Discovery, and we picked our favorite ships. That's a jam-packed episode. We will be back in a couple of weeks for more, and I'm looking forward to that. And appreciate everybody who's out there watching live. Jeff's definitely in the chat and has been great with sharing his own picks. Anybody who might be watching this after the fact, we appreciate you. The discussion. It doesn't have to stop here, as we always say. We're on Twitter. We're on a Discord server. If you're interested in joining a Discord server, I always say this every week. You can shoot me a DM on Twitter. I'll get you a tutorial. I'll show you how to use it if you've never been on Discord before. If you're a user and you're just not a part of our server, I'll get you an invite. It's a modestly sized but active community of fans that are positive, and it's an easy place to bounce ideas and talk about what you're watching, what you're reading, how you feel about the new stuff. We'd love to have you join us if you are looking for a Discord server to hang out in.
Yep. I want to thank everybody for watching. We'll again, the discussion doesn't have to stop here, like Bill said. We'll float some more of the upcoming topics. I think we are out of
We might be.
topics.
Yeah, we might need to do a little
So we'll
brainstorm.
float some in 2 weeks what the topic will be on Twitter. But we'll thank everybody for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, everybody.